15 took place this past Sunday. Guess where of all places? The Impact Zone. Now, it wasn't at the Superdome in New Orleans. It wasn't at Madison Square Garden. But it was an important event because now TNA is officially, from what I believe, is gone. TNA obviously was on its way out. They were trying to call it Impact Wrestling. Now they're, and a lot of people saw this Global Force Wrestling that Jeff Jarrett became a part of about a year or two ago and thought, what's really the difference? They seem to be co-promoting shows. They seem to be swapping talent all the time. Well, now it's official. Now they're the same thing. Now it's Global Force Wrestling. The show will be called Impact. I mean, this is harder to follow than, a single A low-level minor league baseball team's nickname. They keep changing the name all the time, but right now, at their 15th anniversary, still around, they're going to be the Global Force Wrestling. That organization, federation, whatever, Global Force Wrestling, and the show will be Impact. Now, again, that's kind of confusing because is it going to be Global Force Wrestling Slammiversary? Because they still use Impact, unlike WWE uses Raw. You know how they use Impact? They use Impact how the WWE uses 205 Live. We're watching WrestleMania, but we're watching 205 Live. You're like, isn't that the name of a show? That's why it's very confusing, because Impact apparently is the name of the show, but this is Global Force Wrestling, Impact Wrestling, Slammiversary 15. And it was kind of an important show because of the fact that you had the unification of the two belts, the Impact World Championship and the Global Force Wrestling Championship. The Impact belt being held by Lashley, the Global Force belt being held by Alberto El Patron, a.k.a. Alberto Del Rio. He won the main event of this pay-per-view. He became the Universal Champion of this organization. So obviously, Alberto Del Rio not coming back to WWE anytime soon.
Yeah, a couple former WWE guys there, Patron and Lashley. That's cool.
Yeah, I mean, that's why, you can't just ignore this event. It had a lot of, big names. It's got some guys that I thought may never make the WWE, but, I would love to see him in WWE now that they've gone this new route with the Kevin Owenses and the Sami Zayns. Eddie Edwards and Davey Richards, the Wolves. They've been a tag team on the independent circuit. I've seen them 100 times. They've been a tag team now in Ring of Honor, tag team in Global Force Independent.
What about EC3?
Yeah, that's another one.
I would like to see him in WWE.
I would like to see, I would like to see in WWE, if used appropriately, would be James Storm. I mean, he's kind of getting to the end of his career. That was the whole point of his match this past Sunday, Ethan Carter versus James Storm, kind of the new guard versus the old guard. So I think his time might have fallen out, but he had and I think the problem with James Storm too is he has a character that's similar to a lot of other guys. He's got that Braun Strowman, John Bradshaw Layfield kind of, we've already seen that character before. So that is probably his downfall. But like you said, EC3, I'd love to see him. Eddie Edwards, Davey Richards, Eddie Edwards versus Kevin Steen, Eddie Edwards versus Seth Rollins. Those would be, former Ring of Honor guys going against each other. And Eddie Edwards and Davey Richards, they're just, I want to say they're like Kevin Owens because he doesn't have that gym body, but they're like a Sami Zayn.
You know what's funny about James Storm? We've already seen this before. He was in NXT for half a year, I think it was 2015.
And they didn't, and
he didn't really use him much, and he opted out of NXT and he went back to
and good for him to do that because of the fact that he's somebody in Impact Wrestling versus nobody in the WWE.
He was in NXT. He really, like, people got excited for like maybe a half second, and then it's like, oh, okay.
NXT scares off a lot of future WWE guys, because now that they've seen the Kevin Owens make it and the Sami Zayns make it, they're not as scared as going to NXT. But originally, they were pretty scared to go to NXT because they were sitting there thinking, okay, I'm Kevin Owens. I really have no plans in your eyes to make it to WWE. So you put me in NXT, you take me out of these independent world, but you're really never going to call me up. I think now that they've shown that they are going to call these guys up and they're not just going to sit them in NXT, and a Kevin Owens really truly felt that. A Luke Harper felt that. They felt that they didn't want to go to NXT for the fact that they didn't look like a WWE guy. So it's like saying, you want me to be on your AAA baseball team playing second base when I already know you have a Hall of Famer playing second base at the major league level. So I'm coming here with no intention of you calling me up. And now that they've seen that they do have that intention.
I mean, NXT is, like you said, it's like the minor leagues.
It scared a lot of people off a couple years ago from ever calling them up. One thing I'll say, a big negative to this Impact Wrestling pay-per-view, it was pretty decent. I watched it, Sanjay Dutt versus Low Key, which was a great kind of, I'd love to see those guys maybe in 205 Live.
Wait, and not to cut you off, is it the same Josh Matthews that I'm thinking of?
There's no other Josh Matthews.
The old commentator guy?
That is where we're going to say the negative the big negative on this pay-per-view, and I know we've seen it with WWE doing Michael Cole versus Jerry Lawler at WrestleMania. This is kind of similar to that. Jeremy Borash and Joseph Park kind of playing corporate Kane. Because Abyss, let's be serious, Abyss is Kane in TNA. That's what he is. He's TNA's Kane, and he's, for the most part, the last couple months, has been playing corporate Abyss. And we finally saw, his master come back. And the name eludes me of his master right now, who he gets his mask from, but it's the TNA version of Paul Bearer, if you will. But he came back this past Sunday night and gave him his mask and recreated him as Kane, or recreated him as Abyss. Sorry, I keep talking about Kane so much. But that match overall was just awful, because what they tried to do was this thing that WWE did with Randy Orton and Bray Wyatt, with this outside the ring kind of House of Horror style match. They had Josh Matthews driving in a car, going very slow, behind Joseph Park, aka Abyss, and Jeremy Borash. So for the most part, this match was just awful. Like I don't know what the deal is. I don't know why this is such a big thing right now in the world of professional wrestling, to do this pre-taped kind of outlandish segment backstage in place of a match. I don't know why that is the big thing.
Yeah. And then I see Scott Steiner was in that match.
Scott Steiner was in that match. And I'll tell you what, after watching him in that match, I don't know if I want to ever see him in WWE.
I was telling you guys that a long time ago. You guys were all on it, and I'm like, no, I don't want him there.
He was just so gimmicky. I mean, it was pretty hard to watch. It was just, I think, like I said, I think he talks too much. I think he was talking way too much. And he's got a good body, but I just feel like his character is too gimmicky. He's perfect for the autograph signing and meet and greets in the independent world or in TNA wrestling, but his character just seems too gimmicky. The name that was eluding me was Father Mitchell. Father Mitchell is Abyss's, Paul Bearer, if you will, and he gave him back his mask this past weekend to make him Abyss. And he's actually doing some research here. He's been playing this Joseph Park character for the better part of the last 4 years. I thought it was the last couple months, but it shows how much I watch TNA wrestling, Impact Wrestling, Global Force Wrestling, but
whatever you want to call it now.
But that was a downer. Overall, it was a good pay-per-view. I'm curious, are we going to see Global Force Wrestling Slammiversary 30 after we saw 15? I don't know. But one thing I will take away from this, Impact Wrestling many years ago decided to make Bound for Glory its WrestleMania, and I thought that was a dumb idea, because WrestleMania became WrestleMania organically. It was like the first big event. Slammiversary should be their WrestleMania. It shouldn't be this Bound for Glory pay-per-view, because Slammiversary has meaning. It's the anniversary of their beginning. It's the anniversary of when this organization started. So it makes sense for that to be their mark every single year. Don't make this Bound for Glory pay-per-view in October, because let's be serious. All these events take place at the Impact Zone, and that's their one big downfall, that they just seem to, they can't travel well. They can't go on the road. Ring of Honor can do it. All these other organizations can do it. New Japan Pro Wrestling, we're seeing, is now starting to do it. But Global Force Wrestling, Impact Wrestling, they just can't make it out of the Impact Zone. They're having these huge, large pay-per-views, their biggest events. They even had Robert Flores call the event. It was real top of the line, still in the Impact Zone. So, I think they need to make Slammiversary their WrestleMania.
They did make ESPN, so that was very important, which we will get to a little bit later.
We'll get to another match that they had on the event.
They did make ESPN for all you people,
and the
out
NFL
there.
Network, if you are not aware.
Yes.
And this past weekend, the first ever trip for New Japan Pro Wrestling. It's starting to get some ground. It's starting to get all this excitement, obviously, after that big Okada match last year in Japan. Omega versus Okada match. Now, New Japan Wrestling had its first ever 2 shows in the United States, in Los Angeles this past week. And a big thing to take away from that is Cody Rhodes. He is really, outside of WWE, starting to gain some steam. And if he ever comes back to WWE, they gotta keep feeding off of this steam. He almost became the 7th champion in New Japan Pro Wrestling history as the IWGP heavyweight champion. There's only been 6 heavyweight champions in their history. New Japan Pro Wrestling takes their history and their athleticism and their sport very seriously. And he almost became the 7th champion in history. They didn't give him the belt. A lot of people were glad for that, because he is kind of a newcomer. But Ring of Honor, he's the champion there right now.
Good for him,
New
too.
Japan Pro Wrestling, he is tearing it up.
Good for him. WWE's dropped the ball on him. Cody Rhodes has been. I've been.
I don't think I don't know if it's Cody Rhodes dropped. I don't know if WWE dropped the ball. I think it's so much that Cody Rhodes just saw this opportunity and saw that he had to do something, and he's kind of taken himself in a new angle, and it's great the way that he's been going.
The American Nightmare.
He didn't go to independent shows and just start feeding off of, hey, look, I'm Cody Rhodes from WWE. He used it as a way to become a new character, new guy.
I love
and really take off.
Don't you like the American Nightmare?
I
like it.
It's great. And what's great? He still goes to tons of independent wrestling shows. He's coming to Binghamton, New York in about 2 weeks to do a Excite Wrestling show. But at the same time, he's going all over, not just the country, but all over the world, taking championships and kind of becoming this new character. I know he didn't like Stardust, but it's good for him to not try to be going into the independent world, feeding off. A lot of WWE guys
Stardust,
do that.
maybe.
They kind of say, "How am I going to make some money now? Because I need to make some money." So they really hawk their WWE gimmick. It's great for him to just kind of want to completely drop that and become something new.
What do you think? Next, what do you think? 2-3 years he'll be back in WWE? What do you think? I think he might maybe sooner. Who knows?
I could see. I see him going in the maybe the higher route of Global Force Wrestling, Impact Wrestling, probably prior to that.
You think so?
But if WWE brings him back, it'll be very interesting.
Fire, why not? If he's on fire, let's see how it goes for 6 months.
The question is, I think he's having way too much fun that I don't know if he would want to come back right now. He's really, the way he's talked in interviews, it's like a rebirth of his career.
I know his wife's happy. Brandy seems like she's happy with the way things are right now.
I mean, as long as he's making money and not just, I don't think he's making more money than he did in WWE, but he definitely hasn't dropped the ball. He's definitely not a has-been. He hasn't fallen off the map.
No, he's still put on great matches.
If anything, when he comes back to WWE, he's only going to demand more money in the future. So his stock is definitely rising.
Absolutely.
Well, when we return, we're going to get to our 3 questions we have for our panel this week that we've been thinking about all week long, and the rundown for Great Balls of Fire is coming up as you are listening to the Heel to the Face podcast on Sports War Radio, Rat Pack Radio, and now on iTunes.
The New York Jets are rising and are ready to compete in the AFC. Boy Green and Ty Butler will give you everything you need to know about the Jets every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern. From reviewing the previous game and looking ahead to the next matchup, to all of the news and 4 downs, the Jet Zone has everything. Follow @BoyGreen25 and @TyDButler on Twitter. Proud member of Sports War Radio. Let the battle begin.
This program is simulcast on WRPR Rat Pack Radio. Go to ratpacksports.com for more information.
Do you want to stay up to date on the latest sports news? Come check out After the Whistle from 4 to 5 p.m. every Friday night. We talk about the NHL, we talk about the NFL, we talk about the MLB, you name it, we got it. Tune in on Sports War Radio.
Now is the time to get your voice heard. Sports War Radio is now accepting applications for driven and knowledgeable sports fans who want to start their very own podcast about their favorite team. Sports War Radio has an international audience and is growing fast. Don't miss the chance to become the go-to news source for your favorite team. Email sportswarradio@gmail.com and tell us why you would be a great addition to our team. Sports War Radio. Let the battle begin.
Now is the time to get your voice heard. Sports War Radio is now accepting applications for driven and knowledgeable sports fans who want to start their very own podcast about their favorite team. Sports War Radio has an international audience and is growing fast. Don't miss the chance to become the go-to news source for your favorite team. Email sportswarradio@gmail.com and tell us why you would be a great addition to our team. Sports War Radio. Let the battle begin.
Let's get back to the action. This is the Heel to the Face